dance. And all right, I think we're live everywhere. So welcome everybody to MECHS, Magic and Mayhem interviews with sci-fi and fantasy authors. This will be a new name for some of you. This podcast used to be known as Author Q&A, essentially because I decided to start it on a whim and made up a random title that fit and threw it up on YouTube. And then suddenly people actually started liking my show. So I figured, you know what, might as well give it a better name that actually fits it somewhat. But anyway, regardless of what name you know it as, welcome. What I do here, as the subtitle implies, is I interview sci-fi and fantasy authors because I know a lot of cool sci-fi and fantasy authors. And today, for the first time on the show, I have G. Scott Huggins, who wrote a lot of stuff. But today we are going to be talking about book 2 in the Wishkiller saga, which is going to release. When's it going to release, Scott? Is it like next week?
No, it is not next week, but it is August 3rd. So August 3rd, book 2 is getting released.
All right, so very, very soon. And you guys know the drill, usual podcast stuff. If you have any little bit of fun while you watch this, be sure to like, subscribe, do whatever you have to do to get more of it wherever you're watching. And also, same as usual, I've got a whole bunch of fun links to put in the chat. We're giving away a signed copy of War of the Shattered Moon. So if that sounds like your jam, there's going to be a form for that. I'm also going to put pre-order links in the chat as well as a link to book 1 so you can order that, or so you can buy that. But while I do that, Scott, tell us a bit about yourself, about your books, just whatever you want us to know.
All right, so I'm Scott Huggins, and I write under G. Scott Huggins because I thought it sounded cool, like F. Scott Fitzgerald, but apparently not quite as cool as F. Scott Fitzgerald. Maybe my name needed to start with Fitz. But in any case, I write science fiction and fantasy, and I have written more of the fantasy lately. So, I've been writing novels since 2019. I've got some indie offerings, and I've got some from publishers like CKP and Canon Press. So I've written Diesel Punk. I'm writing, this Cold and Mortal Spring is more epic fantasy with a sort of Flintlock Napoleonic feel to it. And then just a whole mishmash of other things as well.
All right, so you've got a ton of offerings. Now, the first story I want to bring up actually has nothing to do with this current book, but every time I see your name, I think about the unicorns that we wrote.
Oh, yes, the unicorns.
And the accidental similarity. Because I remember, so for context, you guys, in my latest book, Blood Knight, Throne of Shadows, there's a unicorn named Lady Forn. She is a very foul-mouthed gamer unicorn who, when you see her, she's a unicorn. You expect this very, very pure, innocent being. Lady Forn is not that. And soon after, I got a message from Scott that was like, how did we manage to write the exact same kind of unicorn? And so, Scott, I want to hear about your unicorn and what book it was from, because I haven't actually read the book yet. I've completely forgotten the title. Like, the cover is in my brain, but the words are not. So, which book is it from?
That's okay. I got a copy of it here. This is called All Things Huge and Hideous, and this was my first novel, and it's an indie offering now. But essentially, it is about the Dark Lord won the war. There were no hobbits with rings. The Dark Lord won the war. Everybody is slaves, and my main characters, James and Harriet, are the veterinarian slaves of the Dark Lord. And so they have to keep themselves alive and all the horrible creatures alive, or they're going to get fed to something terrible. And in one of the stories, it's the only one. This is a novel. It's sort of like if you've read Anne McCaffrey's Ship Who Sang, where it's a novel, but it's lots of short stories kind of chained together. That's sort of the format of this one. And the only one that is from Harriet's perspective contains the unicorn. She decides that she needs to find a unicorn, and the unicorn turns out to be not quite like a slutty gamer chick, but just think of Regina George of the unicorns. Just like, ew, oh,
she's just the most condescending thing I've ever read. I read a little excerpt that you posted on Facebook, and it was just like, oh my gosh. She's so terrible, but I love
Ew,
her.
girls used to be nice. There's just they used to have manners. Ew. Um, disgusting
Yeah.
humans. Okay. So yeah, yeah. So I've got the Regina George unicorn. And yeah, the second I read, which I loved Throne of Shadows, by the way. And I got as soon as I got to 4, and I was like, oh my word, it's the updated isekai version of my character.
I feel like that's an anthology waiting to happen. Just snotty unicorns. Like that has so much hilarious
Snotty
potential.
unicorns.
Oh
Oh
my gosh.
yeah, you could totally do
But
it.
we are not here to talk about unicorns. We are here to talk about the Wishkiller saga. So first off, this saga of yours is Flintlock fantasy, which is a subgenre of fantasy that I think you're actually the first Flintlock fantasy I have covered on this show. So to give everyone a base from which to work, explain what Flintlock fantasy is and how it varies from fantasy as a whole or from the other fantasy subgenres.
Well, I mean, I started writing this book. I mean, this is a really long story from my perspective, because I think I wrote the first line of this book in 2004. So it is really took a while to get this was in many ways my first real novel, and it went through tons of rewrites. But essentially, it just started with the question: why does everybody have a magic sword? Why can't you have a magic gun? You know, and why is all fantasy stuck in the Crusades? And so I decided to write an epic fantasy with a Napoleonic feel. And so instead of, you know, Aragorn with his faithful legendary sword, I've got Ethel Pauling with his sentient gun. And gun in some ways became one of my favorite characters to
We're
write.
gonna have to talk about
even
this
though
gun.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact,
Very good. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is. I called it Guns and Sorcery. My publisher said Flintlock Fantasy. I don't care which one you use. I think they're both great and
oh yeah, and
evocative.
I love that subgenre. It's not one that I read a lot. I think the only other one that I've actually read is DJ Butler's Witchy Eye, which is one of my absolute favorite novels. And so I'm really, really looking forward to reading this series once I get to it on my reading list. But before
Oh, I love Witchy Eye. I think Witchy Eye is great. Yes, I'm a big fan. So
it's a
sorry, go ahead.
spectacular novel. But before we go into what was going to be my first question, I suppose I should probably have you tell us about the books. So tell us, just give a general summary of the Wishkiller saga. What's book 1 about? And then we'll go into talking about book 2.
Okay. Well, in the Wishkiller universe, the sort of beginning of the universe was, once upon a time, there was a king, and the king was granted a wish by God. God said, I will give you one wish, anything you want. And the king asked for the ability for everyone on earth forever to get a wish from God. And this sunk, the result of this was that the well came about. Anybody who could get to the well could wish, and it would be granted. The only wish that anybody knows that the well does not give is a wish for more wishes, or a wish for the well to go away. And it's destroyed the world.
One would imagine.
Because you know, nothing says, for example, that the kings can't build a fortress around the well and keep everybody else from wishing and hold guns to people's head to do whatever they want. So it didn't work the way, like so many wishes, it didn't work the way the person who wished for it wanted it to. The opening of the novel takes place thousands of years later. There is one surviving kingdom of men on Earth, and it is thousands of miles from the well, too far away to be easily affected by it. But a horrible wish has now found them.
Ooh.
Imagine this is called the lotus. The lotus, it's like if kudzu, if you could eat the leaves of kudzu and it was heroin and then it grew inside your body and killed you.
Oh my gosh.
That's lotus. So Lotus has finally found this last kingdom, and it is up to our hero, Captain Ethel Pauling, to try to save the kingdom against the menace that has destroyed pretty much every other place on the face of the earth.
That is already one of the that is already one of the coolest magical universes I've ever heard about. I love the entire concept. Well, thank you. All right. So my first question was going to be, tell us about this sentient gun. It has a name, and it was the greater rifle. And so since this was kind of the idea that initially spawned this whole thing, I want to hear about the magic gun.
Okay. Well, there are more than one greater rifle. The kingdom, in fact, does know how to make greater rifles, but the craftsmen who make greater rifles are the equivalent of high-level wizards. So there's not a lot of them. They tend to be restricted to highborn nobles and the elite military units that they command. And I, in some ways, I asked myself, one of the origins of this was, what does a magic sword do? I mean, really, it's super sharp. You don't need a mind for that. I mean, it's just super sharp. So why do you have a mind in a weapon? But a gun, a mind in a gun, well, it can correct your aim. It can allow for the wind. It can, it can feed you information about what else is going on in the battlefield. And that is what gun does for the hero. It's in some ways also a spider sense. Yeah. Something's behind you. Okay. So yeah, I mean, gun started out as a gimmick, and the further I've written into the series, the more he's approaching a character here. So this is so that's what the guns do. And Gunn and Ethel get to, their relationship develops as time goes on. Also point out there's a wonderful anthology with a lot of the guys from Canon Publishing that just came out. And if you want to read the story in which Ethel gets Gunn, in which Ethel and Gunn meet, that story is in there.
What was the title of that anthology again?
Now you're gonna make me look bad in front of the publisher. Tales from the Gun Crew, because it's Canon
Easy to
Publishing.
Remember. Yeah.
That's it. Tales from the Gun Crew, and my story is called A Mission for Malcor.
We've got Gamora12 in the chat, says, hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good night. First Flintlock fantasy I've heard of, and probably the most famous, is Powder Mage. I haven't actually read that one. But glad to hear about a new addition to the genre. So welcome to the chat, Gamora12. And I'm going to have to look up Powder Mage now, because I can't name a whole lot of Flintlock fantasy. Like, I know it's out there, but it seems to be a very underappreciated and underutilized genre. So I'm glad to see more of it, because I think you don't see a lot of fantasy with guns in it to begin with, which, I mean, is your point about this series. But I really, really like the complexity of how you treat the gun and its intelligence in its design, because you're absolutely right. Like, magic swords, like they generally don't do all that much in fantasy. And I didn't really think about that until you mentioned it, which is odd because they're so common in fantasy. But yeah, so the greater rifle, you said there are multiples. Is Gun the only sort of sentient weapon character, or are there other sentient weapons that pop up?
Well, there are a number of sentient weapons that pop up, but since this story is very much told from the point of view of Ethel, we don't get very much direct. We don't get very much direct input from the other guns. But yeah, there's certainly other characters who have greater rifles and who do use their greater rifles in combat. I believe by the time we get to the end of the second book, you will know the names of at least 4 greater rifles and their owners or partners.
All right, we've spoken about the gun. I suppose we should probably speak about the main character to whom the gun belongs. So tell us about Ithel. What's his story? What's he doing in this words? What is he doing in this series?
Well, Ethel starts out as the captain of an elite cavalry regiment called the Phoenix Lancers, and the Phoenix Lancers are and the opener is that Ethel and the Phoenix Lancers are the people who discover Lotus. That there is Lotus in the kingdom. This is in a way, this is almost like, if Godzilla actually showed up, like, oh my gosh, we'd almost thought this was fiction, but no, it's real. That sort of thing. Or if you can imagine, I don't know, the Black Death showing up in the 1600s after everyone knew what it did in the 1300s. This is very bad. So Ethel is the son of one of the most powerful men in the kingdom, and he joined the cavalry to get away from his father, who is a really nasty, corrupt noble. Only now, of course, Ethel has to go back and convince the kingdom, including his very powerful father, we're all in danger and the politics desperately need to stop, because if we're very lucky and we do everything right, we might live. And this thrusts Ethel back into the very world he never wanted to be back in the first place. So that's his story. And a lot of it is him finding out just how bad things are.
Now, this is obviously a very heavy world-building novel. How heavy is it on the political intrigue, or is it more of an adventure-style novel?
I would say it is. I mean, it's both. But I would say the first book, and to a certain extent, the second book, are going to be fairly heavy on the intrigue. Now, I will say this. As the series advances, inevitably, and by the time you finish the second book, everyone will understand why this is true. It's going to become more of an adventure and less about the intrigue. So I can tell you it will change if you're not a huge fan of intrigue, but you can tolerate some of it in the name of getting to an adventure. This is for you. If you're totally all about intrigue and you want the intrigue to stay the whole thing, I'm sorry, you may not. It's not quite Game of Thrones.
I love some good political intrigue, but I also love some adventure. So neither of these are a problem for me. Now, how did you come up with the concept for the Lotus? Because it's just a really, really interesting evil plant kind of thing. And with your kudzu comparison is very relevant to me because I live in the South and there's kudzu everywhere. So like horrible, evil kudzu-like plant. Yeah, I relate to this.
Well, okay. The Lotus in some ways and the comparison to kudzu do come from a bit of my own history because, we were both at LibertyCon. And you could see Signal Mountain from there. Well, my grandparents used to live on Signal Mountain, and they used to have one heck of a kudzu problem. So I remember my grandmother just cussing about kudzu. It was awful, and more or less, in some ways, I would say I was influenced by a little bit the concept of the berserker. The weapon that gets unleashed and then gets out of control. And I asked myself, if I were going to wish for the perfect weapon, that would absolutely destroy and then maybe get out of control, well, it's an addictive food that tastes really good and I'm going to have to point to Alan Dean Foster in his novel Mid-Flinks. If you've read that book, you can probably pinpoint the where I riffed off something he did in that book for a little bit of the Lotus. It's not the same, but it's that was definitely something that I remembered. And the whole story about the well, frankly, I picked up a sort of a not middle grade, young adult book about a wishing well that did what this wishing well did. And I said, that's not how that would work at all. That's terrible. I'm going to write the story where it would work this way.
So many good stories start that way, though. It seems like every other person I have on this podcast has a moment where they were reading something and they're like, that's lame. I can do it better. We're doing this.
The first story I ever sold to a magazine was that way, too. It was like, I'm watching an episode of Babylon 5. That episode sucks. This is how it should have been written.
Oh my gosh. Which episode was it, out of curiosity?
The Believers.
Is that the one?
The one.
Or is that?
Yep. No, that's the one where the kid has this condition that would easily be correctable by surgery, but the parents believe that if you have surgery, then your soul gets replaced by a demon. So I wrote the story where the aliens who are telling the human doctors, don't do that, it will do something, it will destroy this person's soul, were of course right. And they understood something in religious terms that the humans just said, oh, that's stupid. We're not dealing with this superstition. And it really bit them when it turns out the aliens know more about being alien than the humans did. Hey, what a concept.
What's the title of this short story, by the way? Because now I need to go read this.
Oh, it's called Requiem with Interruptions. And unfortunately, now I'll be happy to send you a copy of it, but it was published in Amazing Stories in the year 2000. So
hard to get.
It's going to be a little hard to get a hold of. Yeah. So, but I will be happy to send you a copy if you just want to read a copy.
I watched Babylon 5 for the first time last year. I'm super behind everyone else, but anything that is Babylon 5 inspired, heck yes.
Oh, I love Babylon 5. I just didn't like that episode. That was like,
I have that too.
That's like one of about 2 or 3 episodes. And I'm like, okay, when we watch the series again, we just skip that.
Yeah. I'm the exact same way about certain media. Like Arcane season 1 is my favorite thing ever, but there's exactly one scene that I really don't like. And it spawned like an entire novel of ideas for me. And so I kind of like, I hate it, but I also love it.
Yeah.
Inspiration comes from fun places. So one thing I want to ask is about tonal differences between book 1 and book 2, because one thing that I really, really love just reading through the blurbs earlier today was book 1 is the question it asks is basically, what price would you pay to save your nation and your loved ones? And at the very end of book 2, it's like, will he have to destroy his kingdom to save everyone? And it's like, that's some intense stuff happens to get to that point. And so it's what is the progression in book 1? Like, is book 1 somewhat laid back, and then book 2 is like, oh my gosh, drama? Or how does it flow?
Let's say that, I guess I kind of have to go to, I find myself making another Game of Thrones comparison. And, I've got to say there's probably no accident that I was reading the first 3 George R.R. Martin novels heavily when I was doing this. However, I would say that, Cold and Mortal Spring is very much more sort of, the things are moving in the shadows. Yeah, things are moving in the shadows, and War of the Shattered Moon is really more about everything is coming out of the shadows, and it's going to, or to put it in Babylon 5 terms, it's War of the Shattered Moon is when the main characters actually start encountering the shadows, and not just, a colony got destroyed by some means we cannot possibly understand. I wonder what happened. How did they do it?
Cool.
So so yeah, that's what I would say is the tonal difference. And originally, this was all one huge book. So I mean, it was all written in this massive 180,000 word monster, and my publisher said, "I'd like to make this 2 books," and for a moment I resisted, and then I went, "Well, no, that kind of does make sense."
Yeah, my wrist hurt just thinking of holding a book that long.
Oh, come on! I mean, one of the reasons I resisted is I'm sitting here going, look at Brandon Sanderson and George R.R. Martin. It's like, don't tell me those books are twice as long as 180,000 words. Okay, I'm not Brandon Sanderson.
You'll get there though.
I know.
Oh, we've got another comment from Gamora12 in the chat, going back to our Babylon 5 discussion. And he says, if you've never heard of him, there's a reviewer on YouTube named SF Debris that covers sci-fi and fantasy and has a good review on that episode of Babylon 5. So I'll have to check that out too. By the way, guys, if you have any questions for Scott, put them in the chat. We'll get to them. And so Scott, so we've heard about the main character. Did you have any other characters that were particularly fun to write? Or alternately, particularly challenging to write?
Yeah, I'd say I'm going to take those in reverse order. This is a military fantasy in many ways, and I have not been in the military, and it's helped a little bit by the fact that nobody I know has served in a Napoleonic infantry experience. I mean, the way that Napoleon's and Wellington's infantry worked was quite a bit different than the way our military works. But writing a character like Sergeant Falk, who becomes one of Eithel's sort of right-hand men, his trusty non-commissioned officer, he was hard to write. Yeah, I really had to talk to some military guys. I had to do some serious research to make him believable. That was a challenge. Let's see. More fun and a lot easier to write was a character that shows up near the end of book 1, who is a monk whose name is Magni, and Magni is. He's basically a nerd. He's a complete nerd with a photographic memory. He in Dungeons and Dragons terms, intelligence 19, wisdom 6. He doesn't know. He knows everything except how the world works, and so which makes him by turns incredibly useful and a terrible liability to have around.
What was the most challenging part of developing the magic of the world?
Well, the fact that it all has only one source. Everything that is magic comes from the well. Some of the magic is so subtle you don't even realize it is magic. In fact, a lot of people don't understand the difference between what's magic and what's not. And I mean, if you think about it, a number of the Native Americans, they'd never seen a horse before the Europeans showed up with horses, because horses are not native to the Americas. Well, I mean, how would you not think that is magic? I mean, for their part, the Europeans, you read some of the stories that people like Marco Polo came back with, and on one hand it's like, yeah, we went to the far off land where there's giants 12 feet tall, and there's guys with no heads but their faces are in their chest. Oh, and by the way, there's also this really tall horse with a neck that's as long as its body. And you're like, okay, all 3 of those sound equally unbelievable, but one of them's real.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you were, one of the challenges that Eiffel is going to have if he ever leaves Verlaine is this new thing Wellspawn, or is this just a continent I've never been to in my life?
That's cool, though. I like that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not contradiction, contrast, challenge, whatever. Words are not coming to my mouth tonight.
That's okay. We've all been there.
All right. So in book 2, there is a character that that Athel has to seek out, and it's Admiral Malcor. Am I pronouncing that right? And that's sort of that's the key, and yes. That's one of the key parts of book 2. So tell us about Admiral Malcor.
Well, Admiral Malcor, as Ethel finds out in book 1, Admiral Malcor is this very mysterious thing. First of all, Ethel and everybody knows him as General Malcor, because he has been, he basically the commandant of an important military academy as long as Ethel's been alive. But it turns out there was a reason that Commodore Malcor got promoted and never allowed to set foot on a ship ever again. And now that Lotus has returned, all of a sudden he's gone. Why did the admiral or the general or the admiral, why did he vanish at the same time as this thing showed up? And by the end of this series, by the end of this novel, you're starting to get you know at least what some people believe happened to him. Mm-hmm. In book 2, you're going to find out a lot more of the real story of what happened to him.
Awesome. Now, how many books are planned in this series?
I would say if I were very lucky, I might do it in 4, but I think 5 is more realistic to do this in. So I hope that's gonna happen.
Nice. And we've got another question from Gamora12 who says, "Do you see the setting for the Wishkiller Chronicles or the Wishkiller Saga expanding beyond this series, perhaps exploring other corners of the world?"
I mean, I suppose there might be some short stories. There might be some. There might be some room for maybe prequels, but I think it would be hard to, it's a little bit like trying to have a sequel to The Lord of the Rings. And I know that's I know that's incredibly egotistical to compare it to that, but in a way, this is my big epic arc story. That is going to motivate this world. Are there rooms for is there room for other stories? Sure, but I'm not sure that it would work to do something beyond the ending events of the series. And that's kind of funny because every other series I've written, I mean, this is just a big silly open world. I don't think there's going to be a definitive ending to it. The other series that I did, the Diesel Punk series for CKP, the Responsibility of the Crown series, this is a very open-ended world that I could see going on until I get bored writing it. But as far as the Wishkiller Saga, I've got a definite end in mind for it.
Yeah. And there is, as much as I love reading additional books in worlds that I love, there is also something to be said for a series that is so tightly plotted that it doesn't really demand a continuation, if that makes sense. Like I love a really, really well put together series. And there are some where if you continue them, it dilutes the world rather than improving it.
Yeah, I agree. I've certainly seen that done. I mean, but I mean, the Miles Vorkosigan books for Lois McMaster Bujold. That was a wonderful open-ended series where she basically said, "I'm going to write stories about this character until I'm done with him," and then she got done with him, and it's a really great series. I love the series. And then there's the tighter, this is the series, and I love those too.
Yeah, it just varies from series to series and vibe to vibe. All right, so I had another question.
Yeah, that's the
And
that's
it
the
fell
case.
right out of my brain.
Yes.
So when you write, are you a pantser or a plotter?
I am much more of a plotter, because if I do not plot, my problem is if I try to pants it, I'm going to A, forget where I was going next, and B, I'm going to do something that's really, really cool. And it is cool. The only problem is it totally contradicts the other really cool thing I did 2 chapters ago. And it's like, you can't, it's like, ravening, mindless dragons are good. Sentient, wise dragons are good. But you can't have both of them in the same story. And if your plot depends on having both of them, there's a problem.
Yes, I have similar issues too. I used to be a pantser, but my imagination was so chaotic that it really benefited me to start being a plotter and leave myself little bits of the world to still explore, but also to have a really strong core plot to follow. And so I'm definitely an outliner myself. Now, what were there any particular books that influenced this series as you were writing it?
Well, I think whether I wanted them to or not, like I said, the Song of Ice and Fire probably did influence that in some ways. I mean, it didn't help that I started reading Song of Ice and Fire on the recommendation of a friend, because we had both been reading Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. So, I mean, the heavy intrigue, epic fantasy was eating my brain at the time. Honestly, in some ways, and this is going to sound weird because this is not a comedy series whatsoever, but one of the inspirations for Gun was Terry Pratchett's Men at Arms, where there is an evil repeating firearm that does have a mind. Awesome. And I was like, okay, so I mean, sometimes I love to do that where it's like, okay, that was a great joke, but what if we took it seriously? You know, what if it was actually something that was beneficial and it made sense? You know, instead of the gun trying to kill people because it's fun to kill people, what if the gun could actually be its own safety? What if you pointed the gun at somebody you know? What if the gun would stop you from accidentally killing your own man because you're freaked out and it's a close quarters combat situation? That's useful as hell. Tell me the U.S. Army, tell me any gun manufacturer, if you could make something that would reliably work like that, as a gun owner, I'd buy it. Hell yes, I'd buy it. I cannot imagine anybody who wouldn't, unless they just thought, no, it won't work. You know, if it worked, you'd want it. But in any case, that's, you know, there's a lot of influences that I can think of, up to and including probably the movie Glory, which is one of my favorite historical movies.
That's one of my favorites too.
But anyway.
You know, this is a completely random question. So the sentient guns in this setting, can they communicate with each other, or is it just like the person that they're associated with? Like if you put a whole bunch of the enchanted guns together, could they have some sort of telepathic conversation amongst themselves? Like, how sentient are they and how communicative are they?
Ooh, well, I think I'm going to have to decline to give a definitive answer to that question. But if you read the books, you will get hints. But this is not something I'm prepared to give a discourse on. This
moves the books further and further up my list. Like you had me initially, but then you added Terry Pratchett, and you got the sentient guns and the mystery with them. Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy it as much as David Weber.
You got such a great quote from David Weber too.
Yeah, that was that. I was absolutely gobsmacked.
I have to look it up,
because frankly, you know, when I approach David Weber, I mean, like, hey, I'm a rando with a few writing credits. Will you read my book? I kind of expect it to say, uh-oh. Did I lose my connection?
No, I can still see you. I can still hear you.
Okay.
So it
Okay, good. Because
oh no. Oh. You went away, but you're back now.
I'm back now. Okay,
Yay!
good.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna make you big on the screen because you're the one we're focusing on, not me. All right, there we go. All right, so, crisis averted.
So I Facebook messaged David because we are Facebook friends because David's great and he Facebook friends a lot of people. Oh, and yeah. I said, hey, would you mind reading this? Like, take a look at it, which was like 90% chance that means no, but he's being polite about it. So, didn't hear anything for a while. I was like, hey, I was just reaching out to see if you'd had time to do it. I was like, oh, I'll get right on that. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh my gosh, the guy, this is like that's the biggest fanboy moment I've had since 1999 when Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle handed me a Writers of the Future Award. But I mean, for David Weber to be like, I read this book and it's the first new novel in years that I haven't wanted to put down. Is like, yes. Holy crud, I impressed the guy I've been reading since my last year of high school.
Yes, it is the greatest feeling. Okay, so I pulled up the actual quote from the blurb, and it's, I really, really like this book a lot. If you want heroes, honored, dastardly villains, and an existential threat to all human life, all wrapped up in battles, bloodshed, assassinations, treason, and men and women prepared to die for honor, you will too. That's a great quote.
Yeah, I as I said, I totally didn't expect any such thing. Oh, look, bonus cat.
We got a cat.
No,
you gotta hold the cat up so everyone can see him. Look at this. He's annoyed that I'm actually controlling him. But this is MacGuffin the Fluffin. So say hi, MacGuffin. Okay. So there's that. Let's see. And the cool thing is I get to use that quote on both of the books because, as I said, it used to be one big book, and I sent David the big one, and he read the whole thing, which was very kind of him. And just as comparing the books, first of all, I like the cover art on this book. Mm-hmm. However, I'm just going to real quick do a screen share here. I think it should pop up on mine.
Hold on. Entire screen. There we go. Boom. Okay, can you see it?
Not yet. Let's see here. It should be showing up on mine, but I don't see it.
I think because maybe. Come on. Oh, share. You have to hit share when you share the screen. But maybe not.
Maybe it's
it might be being a little finicky.
All right. Screen share kind of does its own thing sometimes with
okay. Well, I'm sorry I can't share that, but in any case, I really love the cover of the next book.
You really got some great covers for these. So yeah. I'm going to tell everyone, I just put the link for War of the Shattered Moon in the comments. Go click on it and look at the cover there and then pre-order it.
Yeah. Yeah, do that.
Do it
Order that right now. Yeah. Yes.
I've got a question in the chat from Dean, and I think we might have already covered this very early in the podcast, but do you have a military background?
No, I don't. I have a lot of friends who do, and I have some relatives who did, but I did not have a military background. So I'm going to have to just say no, but I do have a background as a history teacher, so I try to do as much research as possible to make up for that.
Oh, yes.
And my publisher has a military background, so, at least it wasn't whatever I did wasn't bad enough for him to go, oh, come on. So
I feel like 75% of the people in our general author circle have military backgrounds or research backgrounds. So it's like, if we get something wrong, we will know. And Dean says, just bought a cold and mortal spring. So
thank you. I really hope you like it.
Nice. Well, this has been a super fun interview. And so I'm going to begin to wrap us up a little bit. I'm going to put my usual links back in the chat. But Scott, before we head out, are you going to be doing any signings, any cons? Where can people find you if they want to get stuff signed?
Well, right now it's kind of up in the air because as a school teacher, it is difficult to get away during school.
Yes.
But I am looking at the possibility of attending Dragon Con this year, and especially, I'm just going to shout this out. My publisher has put this up as their recommendation for a Dragon Award. So while I know there's a lot of other people who you could vote for, if you were moved to nominate Cold and Mortal Spring for a Dragon Award, and if I should actually get a nomination, I'm going to move heaven and earth to be there for that one. So that's just my shameless plug for me for the award. But aside from that, I don't have any definitive plans to be at a con. I will say I'm at Liberty Con every year, and I will be buying my tickets tomorrow.
Nice. Oh, that's right. The tickets do go on sale tomorrow.
Yeah, they go on sale tomorrow. I've marked it on my calendar.
I don't have to fight in the ticket Hunger Games this year because Jacob and I are going to be Masters of Ceremony next year. So
no kidding. So
I like not having
you're locked in, which is wonderful.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun. All right. Well, where can we find your stuff? I've got a website link that I can actually share in the comments here. But what's the best way to buy your books?
All my books are available on Amazon. You can also go to Canon Publishing to buy Cold and Mortal Spring. You can buy the Responsibility series at CKP, Chris Kennedy Publications. If you're more into diesel punk dragons, the main character here is a half dragon, so that one's fun. And you can definitely find links to all my books on the sidebar of the website that you just put up there. So that's where you can find all my books and every anthology I've ever been in.
So everybody go buy everything. And also,
yes, everybody buy everything.
And again, if you want to try to enter to win a signed copy of War of the Shattered Moon, there's the form.
Do it for the cat.
Say goodbye to the cat too, everybody. But yeah, I will draw a winner tomorrow morning to give everyone a chance to enter. I used to draw it the night of, but then for the past several podcasts, right after I've selected the winner, I get 10 more entries, and so now I'm just waiting. And so I will draw a winner tomorrow morning, and you will find out then. And the book will be on its way to you. But thank you, everybody in the chat.
The book will be on its way to you as soon as I get a copy myself after August 3rd.
Yes, that's the key. You have to have it so you can sign it. All right.
One other thing I'm going to mention very quickly. Everybody always asks, is this available on audio? And the answer for this book is yes. The audio book just dropped. Okay, so thank you. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I love a good audiobook myself. In fact, that might actually be how I pick it up. So thank you for saying that. But again, everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us. And Scott, thank you for coming on. This was a blast.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
We'll have to have you on the next time when book 3 releases.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd love to be there.